let's move on here. I want to talk about what you guys think the biggest strength and biggest weakness is for UMass hockey in 2022. Let's start with the strength first. We'll play positive. Let's just go around. What do we think the biggest strength is for this team?
I think the biggest strength is, even though it's a young team, I think those players are going to make impacts early, like Cole O'Hara. So I think having a good recruiting class is going to make a really big impact on UMass.
Mm-hmm. I think with such a new and, young team, UMass now has, the advantage of a surprise going in. Everyone knew their players from the national championship run, and a lot of those guys returned last year. So you have, going into this year, a bunch of new guys who aren't so well known around Hockey East and with the freshmen, with the transfers. So I definitely think that that's going to be a huge strength for them, is just to show a new side to them.
Mm-hmm. I'm so glad that you guys both brought that up, especially you, Sophie, because that was something that I was just thinking of literally right now before you said it, is this team is kind of a wild card to people. You assume that they're going to be good, but we don't know how good. Nobody knows how good. There isn't college hockey game tape of some of these players that are going to be notable, like Cole O'Hara, Noah Ellis, guys like that. These freshmen that are coming in and playing big roles, no, people aren't going to know what to make of them. And I feel like the other thing that adds into is the underdog mentality. Carville talked about it all last year. You have to wipe away the national championship. It's pretty hard to wipe away a national championship. It's not just something you can do. And they learned that the first week when they played Minnesota State. You can't just flick a switch and it's gone. But now that you have so many players that didn't even experience that, I think it is gone. And the guys that have experienced it, like Cal, Reed, and Eric, you have to imagine that they're actually hungry now, because they were never a part of a team that got bounced out of the first round of the NCAA tournament. And nobody in this program knows what losing feels like anymore, except for now that the standard is so high that the losing mentality is because they lost in the first round of the NCAA tournament. That's impressive, but they're going to be hungry for more. Their freshman seasons got canceled when they looked like they were going to make a national championship run. Their sophomore year, they won the national championship. Junior year, if you're not making it back at least to the Frozen Four, you're feeling like you didn't do enough. So I think that the hunger is back, and I think that the mystery is there. I think that's a really, really good recipe for success this season.
I mean, you talk about hunger, and you have, these returning guys like Cal and all them who, well, yes, they were on that national championship team. Who was it that got the most attention from those wins? Because I don't think it was those guys. It was others. Mm-hmm. So they want to prove themselves. They want to prove we were part of the reason that happened. Mm-hmm. And as leaders on this team, as the older guys on this team, they now have the opportunity to influence those freshmen and be that this program has won a national championship in the past. You guys haven't. Let's go and let's go work our butts off and see what happens.
Absolutely. I also went for the slam dunk in this segment. The only time that I went for a slam dunk in any of the things that we're going to talk about. I said that UMass's strength this year is their defense, because it is. It's always their strength. They need it now more than ever. Carv always says preseason media, and he's going to say it again this preseason. He wants to win games 3-2. If he can score 3 goals and let up only 2 goals, they're doing something right. If he can let up only 1, it's going to be a lot better. I think Scott Morrow is going to... I think Scott Morrow and Ryan Ufko are going to be players to watch, because I think that Scott Morrow probably looked at his game and said, I need to add a little bit more defense to this. And Ryan Ufko looked at his game and was like, I probably could add more offense if I wanted to, right? They're going to come back this year for their sophomore years, having already played in Hockey East. And they might be on a line together, but they will, if they're on the top defensive line, they're going to be one of the best defensive lines in college hockey. No doubt in my mind. And that's just 2 of the people. You got Aaron Bollinger coming back. You've got transfers. You've got other freshmen that are making an impact. I think that this is going to be such a solid defense again this year.
We saw Ryan Ufko and Scott Morrow playing together a little bit last year. They were key members on the power play and penalty kills. They were playing a lot together. So, and I think we were all saying it last year that they were kind of the future of the defense from an early on in the season, and I think that still holds true to now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to see Kenny O'Connor. I know we already talked about it, but I think the fact that Carvel compared him to Colin Felix, who he trusted so much, is so big. And yes, he has the penalty minutes, but I do think he'll add that grit that UMass has.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's going to be the pair with Aaron Bollinger, especially because of that Colin Felix comparison. Like, I think those two are going to go hand in hand. Aaron Bollinger's at the place now where he can be a leader for somebody. And, I hate the Matt Kessel and Zach Jones comparisons to the Ryan Ufko, Scott Morrow line, because I feel like everybody just goes, well, that guy's big, so Matt Kessel, and this guy's small, so Zach Jones. Smaller, I should say. But, like, that's not, their play styles aren't exactly that way. When it was Matt Kessel and Zach Jones, Zach was the offensive guy as the smaller guy. And in this case, it's Scott Morrow. Scott Morrow is like I'm going to get into the offensive zone and do a spin move and take a shot, and somehow it's going to go in. Like, 'cause that's
he
what
was
he
known
does.
for those spin
Like,
moves.
the spin moves are incredible. His offensive skill set is incredible. So I think that they're a little bit different than Matt Kessel and Zach Jones, but the point that I'm trying to make is Matt Kessel and Zach Jones ended up coming in and playing their sophomore seasons together, and it made both of them way better. And Carv talked about that with me when we were talking about Matt Kessel at the end of the season. That year transformed both of them. And I think that the same exact thing is going to happen with Ryan Ufko and Scott Morrow if they end up playing together full time. They obviously played on the power play and the penalty kill, and they looked great there. It's going to, like, them being the top line of the defense and then Aaron Bollinger and a guy like Kennedy Connor, like, it just looks so good on paper. And I think that it's going to show up on the game day, too.
Not to mention that I think Colin Felix saw a fair share amount of time in that penalty box as well last year. So if you're getting compared to him, I mean, it's clear that the reason he ends up so much is physicality, and that was something Colin Felix was brought to the team that was unmatched by anyone else. He was so physical on defense. So I think that having someone who embodies that same kind of play style is what they need.
Absolutely. Let's go on to the biggest weakness this season. Where do we think the weaknesses lie? Let's unpack it.
Not having that top line is going to be really big. I think, you have Bobby Trevino with scoring, and then you have Josh Lupino on the face-offs. I think the face-offs is going to be interesting to see because I think that's such a big thing that UMass was so proud of last year. And then obviously Garrett Waite, he was there on assist and goals, so I think not having that top line will be a little hard.
Absolutely.
I would just like to say, Kayla and I talked about this earlier, so I had a very similar take on this. No, I'm going to go and focus in more on the scoring, finding that key player once again. I know we'll touch on that a little bit later as well, but one of the later segments. But I just think you're losing Bobby Trevino up top, and that's a kind of player that I've never heard Greg Carvel say such positive things about. So him as a goal scorer, him as an offensive player, him as a defenseman, like working his way back, it's just going to be finding someone who one is a top scorer and two who can do a bit of everything, not just meaning like as he was as like a because he was a captain and he had that C on his jersey. I mean, the way he played was someone that when he was on the ice, you took notice immediately, and you're like, you didn't have to say like, whose number is that? You knew who it was.
Yeah, I feel like every year since Carv has been here, there's been like an obvious like top couple scorers that you know are going to make plays. Like it was Kale, it was John Leonard, and John Leonard definitely exploded more than people expected him to, but he was great. And Bobby Trevino right after that, like the expectation was there. If you look through this lineup, and we're going to try and pick a scoring leader, but if you look through this lineup right now, it's hard to pick a scoring leader because there isn't like that one guy where you just know that it's going to be them. Like we can't, like, it's so hard to tell. So I think that that's definitely one of their biggest weaknesses. The one that I said here also that we already talked about a little bit is goaltending. And I just I want to bring it back even more because when you have Philip Lindbergh and you have Matt Murray for 5 years between the two of them straight, there were always questions of which one of them was going to start. But it wasn't because we didn't know anything about them. It was because they were both so good and pushing each other that you wondered, well, who's gonna be the guy? And it was Philip Lindbergh for some time. It was Matt Murray for some time. And now, you're looking at the goaltending situation from a different perspective because you're wondering who's going to start, but it's not in a great way. It's like We don't know enough about Luke or Cole or Henry Graham. Could Henry Graham be the starting goaltender? We literally don't know anything about that room right now. And that, to me, makes it the biggest weakness because we at least know something about the forwards, and we don't know a scoring leader, but we have possible suspects in there. If Luke plays bad, I don't know what Cole looks like. I don't know what Henry Graham looks like. It's going to be really, really tough for them to make a run without a goaltender. That's something that they have never had to do before. They've always had a guy.
I think Cole adjusting to Hockey East especially is going to be hard because it's definitely different than Arizona State. and Hockey East, you're facing shots constantly, and you're facing hard shots, so it'll be interesting.
It's all in the mystery. Who knows? Maybe they'll take like a forward, throw him in net. You never know what's going to happen. I have faith that anything, anything.
Yeah. Carve did joke around about throwing Ty Farmer in net last season when he was going and playing forward and all this stuff. So you never know. Maybe those threats will come to light. You have to hope that they won't, but crazier things have happened,
Take one of the captains or assistant captains, We'll throw Eric Faith. We'll throw Jerry Harding.
I could see Jerry Harding being a sneaky good goalie, actually. Honestly, I want to see them play popcorn, but with Jerry Harding in goal instead of one of the actual goalies. That would be fun.